Are you wondering what your options are for an inherited property and how to sell a house in probate as well? Well, that's our topic for today, and we're gonna get started right now. Hi, I'm Corpus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm a realtor in the San Francisco Bay Area and an expert at helping administrators, executors, and trustees with homes in probate or in a trust. So let's get started talking about inherited property, how to sell a house in a probate. You might also be considering keeping the property as a rental, so we'll discuss that as well. Inheriting property, while it might have the unpleasant effect of someone that you care for passing away, it can be the beginning of building a real estate portfolio. Finding yourself as a property owner could be considered a bit of a godsend on one hand, and having some gratitude for your loved one leaving a piece of property for you to consider whether to rent or to sell. If you choose to rent it, you could begin by making some money every month. Once you go through the whole process to get it ready for rent, and this could be without the upfront investment that is typically needed to buy a piece of property. But first, you'll need to consider how to make money with this gift that your loved one has left behind for you. And you have two main options here. One is to sell it and two is to rent it. Of course, both options can be profitable, and there is no exact right answer on whether you should keep the property or sell the property. It all depends on the numbers, and I'm going to explain on how to analyze the property to come up with your best scenario. You can make a truly informed decision. We're going to dive deep into the pros and cons of whether to sell or to rent the property. And we'll start out first with the pros and cons of renting a house. And here's what you can expect when you become a landlord, especially if you're a landlord far away, because many homes here in the San Francisco Bay Area, beneficiaries live outside of California. So then you would be renting a piece of property from afar, long distance. It's possible to do, and you're going to want to figure out if this is the right thing for you. So the pros: positive cash flow. You'll be earning rental income on a recurring basis. You can do this whether you rent the property in a traditional way, like a long-term rental, or if you choose to do it as a short-term rental, such as an Airbnb, which is probably much more complicated and cumbersome than a long-term rental. And if you're leaning towards renting, there's no rush in selling the property because you'll be earning a monthly income via the rental to cover the carrying costs. This choice is most important if you're in a buyer's market where you may not get the best price for your property currently. But right now we're currently in a seller's market, and that really wouldn't apply to right now, but you never know when the real estate market is going to change. You could choose to rent the property as an Airbnb and then kind of use it as a second home that you could come to and vacation to here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And you may benefit from the possible appreciation, or if we happen to be in a buyer's market. Okay, so these are the pros. Now the cons. Owning a rental can take some of your free time. You have to do work. As a property owner myself and a landlord, I know that owning rental property can take some of your free time. If the property, like I said earlier, is far away from where you live as a landlord, you're going to need to hire a property management company, which would take some of the profits to pay for the property management company. Another thing to consider is the property may need some repairs in order to put it into a good condition to get the best tenant and to be able to rent out the property. Of course, that's going to cost some money. So let's now look at the pros and cons of selling an inherited property. Inheriting property may not have been in your current plans, may be a burden for you, and you may just want to let go of it as quickly as possible so that you can get back to your own life. Of course, it's a big responsibility that your loved one has left in your hands to take care of. So these are some of the things that you might want to consider before selling. Here are the pros of selling. You can make a lot of money, perhaps, depending on whether there's a mortgage on the property. If there isn't a mortgage, you can make a lot of money by selling during a seller's market. And our market right now is a strong seller's market here in the San Francisco Bay Area. A lot of multiple offers, and there would be no reason to continue to deal with the property as if you were renting it out, and you won't have to spend any time dealing with tenants if you chose to sell. You can go ahead and take the money that you make on the sale of the property here in the San Francisco Bay Area and invest it into another property in your area perhaps, or even bigger properties depending on where you live in the country. And these are the cons. It could take, depending on what the market is like, it could take several months getting the property sold. In which case, you would have some holding costs that need to be paid, such as the mortgage, property taxes, utilities, and HOA dues. If you feel like you're in a hurry to sell the property, you might be losing a bit of money as we're in an accelerating market, meaning that you might lose some of the appreciation that could be made if you just waited a few months to see what was happening in the market. And in some places, and in some cases, having a property as a rental instead of selling it could be more profitable in the long run. The other thing to consider is that if you have an emotional attachment on the property, you may feel somewhat that you're betraying your loved one by selling the property. Now, inheriting property is very serious. It could be a lucrative real estate opportunity, and you should make an informed decision based on the data. The facts. We all know that emotions can most likely not be our best guide when we're making good choices. And this is why I recommend analyzing the property to make sure of what the facts are when you're dealing with making this big choice. You want to have hard numbers to talk about with a trusted advisor before you make up your final decision. You're going to want to do a rental property analysis, and this means evaluating the rental's ability for a good rental income. It will involve listing all of the expenses that you would be incurring each month, or one time, like, fixing the property up type of expenses. You're going to want to put that into your analysis. And you're going to want to crunch the numbers to see if the rental price covers what it would cost to fix up the property and the monthly expenses. Of course, you want to have positive cash flow from that rental because, as I know, as a property owner, things need to be fixed up from time to time. And I have a tenant, for example, that's moving out. And when I went over there to look at my condo for the first time before they moved out, I knew I had to put new carpet into that place, and it was going to cost me anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 in order to put the property back into the rental condition so it would be ready for the next tenants. So these are things you need to think about. I get a positive income from that rental, and that way I kind of have the money saved up to do those repairs that must be done. And the one thing you don't want to do in most cases is not earn positive cash flow and keep the investment property. You don't want it to be a drain on your lifestyle or your bank account. So how will you know what the property can rent for? How will you have an idea what it costs to carry it each month? And how much can you actually charge for rent, and then minus those expenses? What I do is I go through rental listings either on Zillow, Craigslist, or Rentometer to see what things are renting for here in the San Francisco Bay Area or in the particular neighborhood where the property is. And I will know what the size of your property is, the amenities, how it compares to other rentals, and I'll have a good idea about your property taxes. If you have an HOA, a homeowners association fee, what the mortgage is, I can help you with a spreadsheet to show you what's it's going to cost you to own that property each month, and we'll have a good idea of what the property would rent for, and then a good idea of what it costs to put the property in a rental condition so that you can get the best tenants. And we'll compile all this information, and then we can talk about it. I'll have all the data for you, or you can do it yourself so that you could really look at the facts and know whether it's a good idea to consider keeping the property as a rental. And when you're considering keeping a property as a rental, you're gonna want to look at what your payback period is for the items that you need to do in order to put the property into rental condition also. This would simply be knowing what the number is approximately and determining how many months or years it will take to get that money back in order to have your initial output of funds back. And now you're really earning a rental income that is above and beyond what your expenses are. So if all the numbers work out and you feel like you're up for having rental, then my recommendation is keep the property. Find a great property management company. If you don't live in the area, if you live outside the area, you can talk to me and I can point you to property management companies that I'd be happily able to refer to you and give you guidance. So what do you do with the property that you're inheriting will not make a good rental? Maybe after running the analysis, you realize that the property is not going to create the kind of income that you would want based on the amount of money or equity that is held inside the property. Maybe going the Airbnb route would be an option, but then again, you determine that the regulations are so tight around the area that you don't want to get involved in a short-term rental situation. You really, don't want to just have it eat up all your time. Of course, this is where it leads you to sell the property. You take the gift from your loved one, and then you determine what you're going to do with it. For instance, you can invest the proceeds in the stock market, perhaps pay down some of your debts, perhaps pay off your home with it, or even buy some rental property in the area that you live in, because you might find that the state that you live in has a lot more to offer when it comes to having investment property. The other option is you could actually invest in a vacation home in an area that you truly love to vacation in instead of here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Again, I would be happy to talk to you about your options and help you gather all the information so that you can make an informed decision, because when we have all the facts, we make the best choices. If you found this helpful, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to me or just put them down below. Again, I'm Dale Corpus from eXp Realty in San Ramon, California. I help probate sellers and buyers throughout the Bay Area and Tri-Valley, and I'll see you on my next video.